Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show that, well, cuts through the noise and gets you straight to what matters.
We try our best.
Okay, picture this. You've poured everything into your restaurant, it's finally taking off, and boom, an inspector walks in.
Oh.
Yeah, next thing you know, there's a dreaded red tag slapped on your door. Your income just stops. And often, it isn't some big obvious fire hazard.
Right. It's often something quieter.
Exactly. It's a misunderstanding, maybe, of something as fundamental but seemingly complex as fire codes. For so many people, trying to navigate these rules feels like wading through just mountains of paperwork and jargon. It can be incredibly confusing.
It really can. It's like being dropped in a massive library. You need one specific rule, but all the books look the same, and you're not even sure which ones are, legally binding.
Or what happens if you get it wrong.
Precisely.
And that's our mission today. We want to give you a shortcut to clarity, help you sidestep that kind of expensive confusion. We're going to untangle this often mixed up world of fire codes, fire standards, and crucially, how they become legally enforceable, especially for you, in commercial kitchen operations.
We want to show you what's actually law and why it's so important.
Yes, cutting through that uncertainty so you can feel genuinely informed.
And we've really dug into some great sources for this.
Yeah.
Pulled expertise from folks in fire inspection, prevention, operations, the whole field, really.
So what's on the docket? We'll nail down the difference between a fire code and a fire standard. Big one.
Huge.
We'll introduce the key organizations, the ones behind these rules, and then show how these documents actually become law with some real-world examples to make it click.
Sounds like a plan. Let's dive in.
Okay, let's start with maybe the biggest point of confusion. When people talk fire codes, especially in the kitchen exhaust cleaning world or among restaurant owners, there's this common idea that NFPA 96 is the fire code. Is that right?
Yeah. That's probably the most common misconception out there. NFPA 96, it's actually what's called a consensus standard.
A standard, not a code.
Right. Think of it like a really, really detailed instruction manual. It gives you all the technical steps, the procedures, the performance criteria for your kitchen ventilation and fire protection. It's the how-to.
Okay, the how-to. So what's a fire code then? Or building code?
A fire code or building code, that's more like the rule book. It sets the minimum requirements for how buildings should be designed, built, used, maintained. It's the broader strokes, the what you must do.
Gotcha. Standard is the how-to, code is the must-do. So what's the danger if someone doesn't grasp that difference right away?
Well, the biggest pitfall is thinking, okay, I have NFPA 96, I just need to follow this, and I'm legal. But here's the key thing. Codes are model laws.
Yeah. Model laws, meaning?
Meaning they're developed by organizations like templates, but they aren't actual law until a government, local, state, whatever, officially adopts them.
Oh.
And even then, the local city or county might tweak it, amend it before they make it official.
So NFPA 96, sitting on a shelf somewhere, isn't legally binding on its own. It's just good advice.
Yeah. Pretty much. Excellent advice based on expert consensus, but just guidance. A standard like NFPA 96 only gets teeth, legally speaking, when it's specifically referenced in a code that has been adopted.
Referenced.
Yeah. So say your city adopts the International Fire Code, and that code says, for kitchen exhaust systems, follow NFPA 96. Then suddenly, NFPA 96's rules become the law in your city.
Okay. Until that happens, it's best practice.
Yeah.
But a fire marshal can't write you a ticket just for violating NFPA 96 itself.
Not unless it's been formally adopted and referenced. No.
Oh. Okay, let me try an analogy here just to make sure I've got it and for everyone listening. Is it kind of like NFPA 96 is a super detailed recipe, like for building and cleaning your exhaust hood, perfectly exact ingredients, steps, temperatures.
Okay, I like where this is going.
But that recipe itself isn't law. Now, the health department regulation for restaurants, that's like the fire code.
Mm-hmm.
And that regulation might say you must follow these specific recipes or procedures for safety.
Right.
So the code is the law that points to the recipe, making the recipe's instructions mandatory. Does that work?
That's a fantastic analogy. Seriously. The code is the must. The standard is the how-to that becomes the must when the code says so. Perfect.
Great. So we understand the difference now. But who actually writes these things? Who are these organizations crafting the codes and standards?
Okay, there are two main players, primarily in the U.S., but they have global influence. First up is the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA.
Heard of them.
Yeah, they've been around forever, since 1896. They're a US-based international nonprofit, and their whole mission is basically reducing fire and other hazards worldwide.
How do they do that?
They publish over 300 consensus codes and standards. These are developed through a huge process involving volunteers, technical committees, industry experts. It's quite something.
And NFPA 96 is one of theirs.
Absolutely. NFPA 96, the Hood and Duct standard, is a big one for kitchens. It covers everything from design, installation, operation, inspection, maintenance, the whole life cycle. And they have others like NFPA 13 for sprinklers that's been around since the very beginning.
Wow, okay. So NFPA handles a lot of the standards, the detailed how-tos. Who's the other big name?
The other major player is the International Code Council, or ICC. They're also a U.S. nonprofit, formed a bit later in 1994. Their focus is on providing model codes and standards for safety and health in buildings and structures.
Model codes. Like templates again.
Exactly. They published the family of I-codes, which are probably the most widely adopted model codes in the U.S.
And which I-codes matter most for, say, a restaurant kitchen?
For kitchens, the big ones are the International Fire Code, IFC, that sets fire safety rules for buildings, including commercial kitchens, and the International Mechanical Code, IMC, which covers mechanical systems like your ventilation and exhaust.
Okay, IFC and IMC.
Yeah, and there are others like the International Building Code, IBC, for construction, and Residential Code, IRC, for homes.
So NFPA does the detailed standards, ICC does the model codes. How do they actually work together to create enforceable rules for that restaurant owner? Where's the connection?
This is where it all comes together. A city or county decides they need a fire code. They often look at the ICC's model codes like the IFC or IMC and decide to adopt one.
Okay.
But within that adopted IFC or IMC, there will be sections that say, for guidance on X, refer to NFPA standard Y. So when they adopt the IFC and the IFC references NFPA 96...
Then NFPA 96 becomes the law for kitchen hoods in that city.
Bingo. That's the mechanism. And it's worth noting these I-codes get updated every 3 years, so it's an ongoing process.
Right, keeping up with technology and lessons learned. So the real power, the legal force, comes from that local or state adoption. Until then, it's just a recommendation on a shelf.
Precisely.
But once it is adopted, violating it means real trouble fines, maybe getting shut down.
Absolutely. That adoption gives it teeth. And that's when you meet the authority having jurisdiction, the AHJ.
The AHJ. Who is that usually?
Yeah. It could be your local fire marshal, could be a building official, sometimes even an insurance inspector, depending on the situation. They're the ones responsible for interpreting and enforcing the code as adopted, including those reference standards.
And if a standard isn't referenced in the adopted code?
Then it stays as best practice. Good idea to follow it. Maybe your insurance requires it, but the fire marshal can't cite you under the code for it.
Okay, let's make this concrete. You mentioned real-world examples. Tell us about Harris County, Texas. That includes Houston, right? How's it work there?
Yeah, Harris County is a perfect example. They adopted the 2018 International Fire Code, but they added some specific local amendments. Their Fire Code Enforcement Office is the AHJ.
Okay, so they use the IFC as a base.
Right. And what's interesting is just recently, January 1st, 2025, they updated their code for the unincorporated areas to align with the newer 2021 IFC. It shows how jurisdictions keep these things current.
So they're actively managing their code. When they adopt that IFC, what does it mean for NFPA standards in kitchens?
Well, it means the relevant NFPA standards become enforceable. For kitchens, the big one, NFPA 96, is definitely in play. The Texas State Fire Code and the Harris County Fire Code specifically call out requirements based on it, like the inspection frequency.
Right, you mentioned frequency earlier.
Yeah, it depends on cooking volume.
Sure.
High volume places like 24-hour spots, rope cooking, that's quarterly inspection and cleaning. Moderate volume is semi-annually, low volume is annually.
And the cleaning itself.
Critically, the code there mandates cleaning the entire system, hoods, filters, fans, ducts, horizontal and vertical, down to bare metal.
Bare metal. No cutting corners. That sounds demanding. Does that mean the people doing the cleaning, the vent hood cleaners, need a special license or certification in Texas or Harris County?
That's a really good question, and another area where things can get murky. Interestingly, Texas doesn't have a statewide license specifically for vent hood cleaner.
Really? Unlike, say, sprinkler guys.
Right. Fire protection contractors often need state licenses, but not hood cleaners generally. Now, Harris County's code says cleaning must be done by approved personnel, but the readily available info doesn't spell out exactly what approved means in terms of mandatory certification.
So it's a bit vague.
It can seem that way. However, best practice, and this is pushed hard by NFPA 96 itself and groups like IKICA, the International Kitchen Exhaust Cleaning Association, is absolutely to hire technicians who are certified.
Like a CECS, Certified Exhaust Cleaning Specialist.
Exactly. Or an equivalent certification, someone who demonstrably knows NFPA 96, maybe IKICA standards like C10, and the local code nuances. It's about ensuring competence, even if the local law doesn't explicitly require that specific certificate.
Got it. Hire certified even if it's not strictly mandated because they know the standard that is likely mandated.
You nailed it.
Okay, so let's assume NFPA 96 is legally binding in a particular area because it's been adopted or referenced. What does that mean in practice for the restaurant owner and the hood cleaner? What are the non-negotiables?
All right, this is the practical stuff. Number one, maybe the most fundamental, bare metal cleaning.
We keep hearing that phrase.
Because it's critical. NFPA 96 is explicit. The entire system hoods, the grease filters or baffles, fans, ducts, everything connected has to be cleaned down to the bare metal before grease builds up to a hazardous level.
And hazardous means.
Basically, all the accumulated grease needs to come off, no layers left behind. It's not just wiping the surface, it's removing the fuel load.
Okay, truly bare. I imagine that's where some might try to skimp.
Oh, definitely. You see clean reports, but then an inspector finds thick grease just inside the duct opening. That's not compliant, and it's dangerous.
And the frequency, you mentioned quarterly, semi-annually, annually.
Wait, and there's one more. Monthly if you're doing solid fuel cooking like wood-fired ovens or charcoal grills.
Oh, right.
So, monthly for solid fuel, quarterly for high volume, 24-hour wokes, semi-annually for moderate, annually for low volume, churches, day camps, seasonal spots. And the general charter is often considered when grease depth hits about 0.0002 inches, which is surprisingly thin.
Doesn't take much. Okay, cleaning is done.
Yeah.
What about proof? Is a simple invoice enough?
Oh, absolutely not. NFPA 96 requires specific documentation. First, there's the service label, often called the vent hood sticker.
The sticker you see on the hood sometimes.
Exactly. It has to be put on the system after every cleaning. And it needs details. Date of service, the cleaning company's name, the tech's name or ID.
Okay.
And crucially, it must list any areas that were not cleaned or were inaccessible and why. Plus the date the next cleaning is due and the company's license or certification number if the local rules require it.
What if they find something really bad, like it just can't be cleaned properly?
Well, some jurisdictions, like Utah, for example, have specific rules. If a system is found non-compliant during cleaning, it might need to be red tagged, basically marked as unsafe, and the AHJ has to be notified within a few days.
Wow. Okay, so the sticker is step one. What else?
Beyond the sticker, NFPA 96 and IKECA C10, another important standard, mandates a detailed after-service report.
What goes in that?
It's pretty comprehensive. Basic admin stuff, client, address, date, a description of the system, how many hoods, what type, ducts, fans, the scope of work, what methods were used, what parts were cleaned.
Right.
Then a section on deficiencies. This is critical. Missing access panels, damaged fan belts, sections they couldn't reach. It all needs to be documented along with recommendations to fix it. If a section wasn't cleaned, the report must explain why.
Accountability.
Totally. And finally, a statement verifying the system was cleaned to bare metal, the required inspection frequency, the next due date, signatures, and often a copy of that service sticker needs to be attached to the report.
That's a lot more involved than just an invoice. Seems like paperwork, but clearly vital.
It is. And there's one more piece of proof that's become absolutely essential.
Let me guess.
Photos.
You got it. Before and after photographs are not just a good idea. NFPA 96 requires them.
Well, what kind of photos? Just a quick snap of the hood?
Not even close. Think of it like a photo tour following the grease path. You need wide shots of the hoods and the plenum behind the filters, before and after. Photos of the filters themselves, before and after cleaning.
Go.
Then, pictures inside every accessible section of the ductwork, both horizontal runs and vertical risers, showing the condition before and after. Photos of the exhaust, fan blades, housing, any grease containment system up on the roof again, before and after.
Every accessible section.
Every accessible section. If a section isn't accessible, maybe because there's no access panel, the report needs to note that, recommend installing one, and explain why there's no photo for that spot.
So missing photos basically imply unclean sections. That's exactly how an AHJ or an insurance adjuster might see it. If there's no photo, there's no proof it was cleaned. It can lead to failed inspections, citations, or big problems if there's ever a fire claim. The photos are non-negotiable proof.
If it's not documented, it didn't happen.
Precisely, especially with photos.
Wow. Okay, this has been incredibly clarifying. So let's pull it all together. What does this really mean for our listeners, whether they're running a kitchen or cleaning hoods? What are the big takeaways?
I think the absolute core takeaway is this. NFPA 96, the detailed how-to standard, is essentially a book of best practices until your local or state government officially adopts a code like the IFC or IMC, and that code specifically references NFPA 96.
That's the trigger.
That's the trigger. Then it becomes enforceable law, and the AHJ, the fire marshal, the inspector, gets the power to enforce it, potentially issuing fines or even shutting you down if you don't comply.
Okay. And for the hood cleaning companies listening in, what's the message for them?
For cleaning companies, understanding this code versus standard distinction is, well, it's vital for how you operate and how you talk to clients. You should absolutely highlight your qualifications, your certification if you have it, and your adherence to NFPA 96 and maybe ICACA standards.
But frame it correctly.
Exactly. Frame it as, we follow these standards because your local code requires it. It shows you understand the legal landscape. And providing those meticulous labels, reports, and photos, that's not just customer service. It's demonstrating compliance for the AHJ and the client's insurance company. It's proof.
Makes sense. And for the restaurant owners, they're the ones ultimately on the hook for compliance, right?
Absolutely. Restaurant owners, you need to be actively involved. Don't just assume your cleaner is doing it right. Verify they're qualified, ask about certification, demand that complete documentation after every single service, the report, the sticker info, and especially those photos.
And check them.
Yes. Look at the photos. Does it look like bare metal? And make sure the cleaning frequency matches your actual cooking volume, not just what's convenient or cheapest. Don't fall into the trap of thinking a quick pass from the fire marshal means you're totally compliant.
Why not?
Well, an inspection often checks paperwork and maybe looks at readily visible areas. They're probably not climbing into your ducts to measure grease thickness every time. Compliance is an ongoing responsibility.
And the insurance angle you mentioned.
Critically important. If you have a fire and your insurance company investigates and finds you haven't maintained proof of regular professional cleaning according to the standard your code requires, they could deny your claim.
Ouch.
Yeah. So that due diligence hiring right, getting proof, ensuring frequency, it's not just about code compliance. It's protecting your property, your staff, your business continuity, your entire investment, really.
It really drives home that while wading through these regulations can feel like that perilous inflow we mentioned at the start, understanding the structure code, standard, adoption, AHJ, and having experts who grasp it can turn it into manageable, actionable knowledge.
Absolutely. Clarity is key.
So let's do a quick wrap-up of this deep dive, the big distinction. Codes are the legal musts, the minimum requirements. Standards like NFPA 96 are the technical how-tos.
Right.
And that critical link, the thing that turns best practice into enforceable law, is local adoption by your government, referencing that standard.
Can't emphasize that enough.
And finally, documentation, the sticker, the detailed report, the comprehensive photos. It's not just paperwork. It's your legal and insurance lifeline.
Well put. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening.
Please.
Now that you really understand the difference between just a best practice recommendation and an actual enforceable law, take a hard look. Are there areas in your operation where you might be relying on just recommendations when you should actually be meeting legally binding regulations? Something to mull over.
That is a great question to ask yourself. Definitely food for thought. And speaking of things that might make you think twice, join us for our next deep dive. We're going to tackle insurance requirements, specifically for kitchen exhaust cleaning companies.
Oh, yeah. And, hint, it's probably not what you expect. We'll dig into things like how KEC companies sometimes get lumped in with pressure washers by insurers.
Really?
Yep, and how your policy might not automatically cover things like towing trailers or the equipment on those trailers that often needs a separate inland marine policy. And you might be surprised to find certification or training requirements coming directly from the insurance providers themselves.
Okay, you've hooked me. Sounds like another area with hidden complexities.
Yeah.
You won't want to miss that one.